It's the most wonderful time of the year. This really is one of my favorite cycles. I feel like just because of the build up and anticipation to hosting our third annual Winners Coming Classic competition, as well as leading into the end of the year. I think it's like fun having the holiday transition, and then that leads to open prep. But yeah, I mean, this cycle is really fun because we like to create the internal competition that we have for all of our online programs and host it, and it's just like a fun training build towards it.
I also think that this is like the time of the year where you either jump on the train or you just might as well get off and not get ready for the open. You know, most people, they are all like kind of this time of year like, oh, I'm going to enjoy the holidays and I'm going to focus on other things. But like if you want to be ready for the open, or I guess now we just call it the CrossFit season because there's so much that goes into it, you better be training now and prepare yourself. And that's what this cycle is all about, is preparing you for what's needed in our open prep cycle and then beyond.
Yeah, I think open prep cycle is obviously very important to do, but if you start there, you're a procrastinator.
Yeah. you're probably screwed unless you're like really talented.
It's just so hard to cram all that fitness in that late. So I think start now is the big important thing. And like we'll talk about in more detail, like the strength progressions we've got coming up and the intermediate gymnastics progressions and where we're heading with it all. But I think it is like the last chance to get like a good final like block of training in before the open comes, because it's really not that long from the start of the year to the first week of the open.
Yeah, the open's moved up a week this year, so our open prep cycle is going to be a little bit shorter, but that also means that, again, going back to it, like this, we're thinking about those things. Like we're already planning, what are we doing in this cycle that's going to prep all of our athletes for the open cycle and then for open quarterfinals and semifinals for those that make it.
Yeah, so how do you want to break this down? Because we've got a lot to cover.
I think the first thing, let's just continue to remind people, and that's why I said it kind of goofily, but Winners Coming Classic is at the end of this training cycle. It'll be our third one, and we've always, the last 2 years have been awesome. It's like so much fun to do an internal competition. We invite all our individual athletes. We'll have some games athletes doing it as well. We'll have a full leaderboard for all those workouts. It'll be a lot of fun.
Have we explained what it is yet for new listeners?
Well, yeah, for new listeners, go ahead, do it, Mia.
Okay.
Crush it.
What is it?
I don't know. It's this thing we do. It's this online competition that we do. It happens right before the holidays, so it gives you something to train for and keep your training focused on, and so you don't, it's really our attempt at not letting you get lazy before the holidays.
Well, it's super easy, right? Because you think about it, this cycle goes from October 24th through the end of this year. And what happens during that, especially for those that are in the United States, like you got Thanksgiving, and then everyone's kind of like taking off for that time, and then they have Christmas after that, and most people take like a week or two off. So we're trying to keep everyone focused, just like to Mia's point, to make sure that you're still training. And then the way that we write those workouts, we're actually thinking about what's going to be tested in the open, what's going to be tested in the quarterfinal, what's going to be tested in the semifinal, and then we kind of blend those so that everyone is getting prepped before the open cycle.
Yeah, and I think it's like a good send-off too, going into like a holiday transition. So it's very difficult to keep up very hard structured training through the holidays, especially like Christmas time moving to New Year's. So we're not going to battle that. We're going to make sure that leading up to that point, you have one of the hardest training pushes you've had in the year, so that you can have that kind of back off transition period, so that you do feel refreshed and ready going into the open cycle, which starts at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. So the Winner is Coming Classic Edition 3 will be December 15th through the 18th. If you're in the program, we're going to be saying stuff all throughout the next cycle. So you'll know exactly when those dates are. You're going to get some teasers to what those workouts will look like. We have some people testing them this week.
Yeah, I'm fired up for them.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We spent some time writing those, and there's some fun tests in there.
Definitely some novelty.
Yeah. So and the other, I think, big thing that is tied to all of our digital programs is the start of an affiliate program. We've had so many people. I know a lot of athletes have reached out to me personally via direct message in our app asking when we're going to have an affiliate program. So, Mike, you want to touch on that just real quick?
Yeah. So, I think the big important announcement is that registration for it opens October 10th. So what we're going to do there is basically, this next cycle starts October 24th, but we're trying to get it opened up early, a little bit ahead of time, because we understand that transition for gym owners takes a little bit more time. It's not like you can just all of a sudden switch over to your new programming, like 5 days before. So registration is going to open October 10th. And when you do that, you'll actually get more information about what that upcoming cycle is and the first week of training. But basically what we've created with an affiliate is creating two different paths. So we understand that there's like a need for gyms that have a more competitive approach to training, but then also the other side, there's some gyms that don't necessarily have that competitive landscape and want to have good training, good structured progressions for athletes that want to make progress year round. So we've created two. We've created a competitive path and a fitness path, and both of those are written with some coincidence within our community of some of the workouts, but for the most part, they're their own training paths that really do try to fulfill different styles of gym. So that's one thing that we're really excited about. You've got two coaches, or we've got a handful of coaches building the entire program, but myself and Kyle Habdo will be heading up the competitive and fitness path in terms of the videos that you would get and the information that you'll receive from us. So yeah, we're really excited about putting that out, and we're actually put more information
on the website.
So you just go to trainingthinktank.com, and there's plenty of info there, and we've got a page that tells you all the details you would want to know about it. So
yeah, let's go ahead and jump into our Compete training cycle. And for those that are new, I think that, you get into the program and you see all these different options. I want to kind of clarify that down a little bit so everyone knows exactly what would be for you. So we have 4 main paths in our Compete program. We have an elite path. That's for those that are going to make semifinals for sure, or are going to make the games. And we have a lot of high level athletes in there. It's a lot of fun to see how good they are.
Yeah.
Then we have our RX path. Within that RX path, we have an option 1 and an option 2, and I'll let Mike kind of dive into that when you're talking about the strength work.
Yep.
But that essentially gives 2 different options for those that are RX level, trying to fight through a quarterfinals, maybe make a semifinals, or just you have all the skills. And even if you're not trying to be competitive at, let's say, the CrossFit level, but maybe you want to do a Wadapalooza, or you want to do another in-person competition, you do the RX path. Option 1 is our full volume, full intensity option. Option 2 is the option that, to be honest, I do. I think, Mike, you're
I
doing
use
a
it
lot
all
of
the
that.
time.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic training program.
It's for those that, hey, look, you got a busy job, you have kids at home. Mike and I are always running around trying to pick up the kids and do all those other things. We maybe only have 60 minutes in a day. Option 2 is that option for you. Then we have our intermediate path, which Mia is going to talk about in a little bit. This is for those that don't have all the skills of the sport, but want to graduate from, let's say, maybe I have everything but bring muscle ups and handstand push-ups, but I want to get to RX so I can do an RX competition, or I want to go to quarterfinals, but I can't do muscle ups yet. Intermediate path is for you because it's going to develop all of those skills that you need for the sport. And then Masters is 35
mastered
plus.
it.
Yeah.
Mastered the sport.
You're an old person or a moderately old person. You're Mike or older, right?
Yeah, I'm not a baby Masters anymore. I'm a Masters veteran.
And we have option 1 and option 2 for Masters as well. For those that have time, 90 minutes in a day, that want to do all of the intensity and all of the volume, you have option 1, and then option 2 again is our lower volume option. And then we have modifications for 55 and plus. And we're going to do a couple different things in Masters. We're going to start kind of giving some more scaling options. I know that's been some feedback points. Some people have said, look, I'm a Masters, I'm high level, but I don't have these 3 or 4 things. We want to give you some options too, but just keep in mind, even if you are a Masters and you don't have any of the skills, intermediate is a great place to start.
Yeah, we touch a lot of base, or we touch a large field with that because, you've got some of the younger Masters categories that still hit like extremely high intensity and very hard workouts. And you've got some Masters that come in on the older age groups that they still need the skill development and positional work. So I think that you've done a great job of kind of breaking that out and making sure that both spectrums are hit.
Yeah. So with all of those paths, we're still following the same template, but then it's just basically changed. The actual training is changed based on the coach. So we'll talk about all that as we go forward based on the needs of that division. So intermediate obviously is doing more skill work. Masters is focused more on what's tested in the Masters categories. RX and Elite are more geared towards the quarterfinal style workouts and so on. And so we'll kind of dive into that. I think the best way to break this up is talk about strength, and then we'll talk about CrossFit. We'll go to intermediate. And then we also have extra credit skill programs that we're going to talk about at the end of that.
Yeah, I think something to add too, and if you're watching this, maybe you found the link on your own, but we're going to offer new overviews that actually have all this information written out. So we understand it's a lot to take in, but it's really easy to follow along. We're going to have a daily program template written out so you can kind of look and see what the skill and strength focuses are for each day, what the Metcon focus is for each day through the week, and then the individual notes for each path as you go through. So follow along. All right, strength focus for this cycle. So when I look at big picture progressions throughout the year, you wrap up the quarterfinal season or semifinal season, and then everyone goes into this kind of off-season focus where we do very strict linear progressions on certain squats or hinging movements, and just making sure that we're, shoring up any asymmetries. And that progresses back into a little bit more sport-specific focus. It was what we just wrapped up this last cycle. So when I'm looking at big picture of all right, we're about to go into open prep cycle, things are going to start looking really similar to what the sport is going to throw at us come time for the open and quarterfinals. We've only got this last chance block to really get one more good uninterrupted strength cycle in. So my focus this cycle is to let everyone that needs to get stronger get one more really good, consistent linear strength progression as we work through. So Mondays are going to be Olympic lifting, weightlifting focus. So you're going to have snatch and clean and jerk on the same day. in a very traditional weightlifting style setup. We usually split them up throughout the week, but this cycle I wanted to change it up a little bit and let Monday be like that focus. It's not going to be necessarily CrossFit Olympic lifting style focus.
I love that kind of lifting.
I would say like pretend that you're doing an Olympic weightlifting meet, which you might be doing in this cycle toward the end of it. That it's going to look like traditional weightlifting. So we haven't done that in a while, and I think, all right, if we have an opportunity to do it before we go back into an open prep phase, this is the time to do it and get one more big push on those lifts.
And I would just briefly say, I think everyone kind of overreacted when they saw the games this year, and they're like, oh, we need a ton of strongman work, which, by the way, we have a lot, and we have some extra credit work that's going to be strongman based. So for those that need pegboard or they need heavy bags and carries and all that. But it could easily just swing right back to Olympic lifting. It always has been the clean and jerk and the snatch. So you need to be good at those lifts and make sure that you're prioritizing those.
Yeah. So, I mean, the last cycle we did a lot of mixed stuff, like, we were doing snatch AMRAPs and endurance-based lifting. And I think that it's good to do all of that. And there's, time and place for all that. But I also think, too, we need transition in cycles. And I think that right now, with it being 1 day a week, this is a good focus for this. So you'll see snatch, clean and jerk, and then we'll have back squat progressions for those that do need to continue to just drive up 1 RM, because that's very important for all divisions based on all the numbers that I monitor and keep track of. So, but we'll have something fun at the end of the cycle for that, just to make sure that you know exactly what you're progressing towards. Tuesdays are going to have a mix of strongman elements and gymnastics endurance work. So previous cycle, we did a lot of barbell speed work on Tuesdays. We're going to switch it up a little bit and let today be kind of what Brandon was saying, where we get some of the strongman elements in. So it's not going to be like find a 1 RM sandbag to shoulder, but it's going to be touch and go work with double kettlebells, odd object implements, just making sure it's something that does kind of round out and complement the entire week as a whole. And then comboed, alternating with gymnastics endurance sessions. So you're going to see a lot of wall facing handstand push-ups, new elements, progressions on those types of workouts, and then maybe just some real strict strict AMRAPs of doing strict handstand push-ups, strict pull-ups, single leg squats, not alternating, just making sure that gymnastics endurance development is getting hit, but in a fun Metcon style format.
And by the way, I think that the strongman work, even if you're not somebody that's trying to make a semifinal, they're never going to test a sandbag hold or a carry or to shoulder in the open. Just doing that, it will give you another pathway to get strong. Like when I started doing a lot of that,
Absolutely.
I got so much stronger because I learned how to control my body a little bit better.
Yeah,
it also shows up a lot in local competitions.
That's true.
It does.
In person, yeah.
Yeah, there's 100 reasons why, but I think the big one that the majority of people following this program would benefit from is how it rounds out your body when doing the very normal barbell cycling patterns that we do all the time. When you overload those patterns all the time and don't get out of the different planes that we're hitting, if you're training in a phone booth all the time, strongman work can kind of help balance that out a little bit. And I've just seen people break through strength plateaus very often, making sure they get touches on that stuff.
Yeah.
All right, Wednesdays are going to have split jerk technical work, continuing to make sure that we are improving the overhead strength position, but in a more of an Olympic lifting style progression. You'll see split jerk progressions, technical some days. You'll see maybe some push press, some push jerk, but for the most part, you'll have something overhead starting on Wednesdays, and then that will also be followed up with deadlift progressions. And we're going to alternate, like what we have done similarly in the past, is having a mix of absolute strength 1 RM development and then comboed with some endurance work, because I've just seen that how the sport, how people are in the sport with handling really, really aggressive deadlift percentages over time. It kind of beats them up more than it actually helps them. So I like to kind of alternate that to make sure that they are getting touches on touch and go work, but also hitting high percentage work, just not as frequently as you would like on doing a back squat cycle every single week. I just see that this keeps athletes a lot healthier, and doing touch and go endurance work for like deadlifts, I actually see people get stronger as a result of that. It's like one of the several previous cycles we've done where we haven't hit a ton of like above 90% work with a 1 RM deadlift, just doing like touch and go EMOMs with like that sub 85% range. I've seen people hit PRs in their deadlifts. So I'm a big fan of that. You're going to continue to see more of that as we progress through this cycle. Elites, we'll touch on that, but elites are going to have a couple of extra things added. Tuesdays, you'll see bench press progressions for elites, just to make sure they're getting that in twice a week. RX will still have that. I'll get to that, just not on Tuesday. And then Wednesdays, elites are going to have barbell cycling metcons, which, not to jump ahead to the elite cycle overview that you're going to touch on, but I just want to make sure that the elites will know that they are going to get some extra barbell cycling work at the end of Wednesdays. Fridays, we're going to rest Thursday. We're not going to do any lifting on Thursday.
Yeah,
Fridays,
rest on that.
I'm going to bring back the choices of priority lifts that people want to go through. So we'll have a choice of front squat or overhead squat. And this is based on what your priority is. We'll give some guidance in the group on how to know if it's a priority or not. But basically, I'm giving the athlete the option to choose, I want to do front squat progressions on Friday, or I want to do overhead squat. We're already doing back squats on Monday. I think those are going to be pretty tough and higher percentage. So the Friday will be more volume focused, and we're going to progress towards something like a 5 RM, the front squat and the overhead squat. But the option will be there, and I'll give guidance and pointers on like, all right, based on X number, this is what we want you to choose so you can use this moving forward. And I think that has helped people. It's helped individualize it a lot more for people that have a specific weakness, in making sure that, like if somebody's overhead squat is terrible, but too bad we're doing front squat progression this cycle, it's not just completely getting missed. And then Saturday, where'd my note go? Saturday, we're going to have some strict press and bench press progressions with some bodybuilding. So we will continue to progress, making sure that all the major lifts are getting hit in this cycle, just in a format that's going to shift around a little bit. Thank you, Mia. I see you adding that. Bench and strict progressions. We'll also have some options in there as well. So if your bench is really weak or your strict press is really weak, like for me, my strict press is really strong. A lot of people need to get better at their strict press, but relative to the entire field, my bench press sucks. So I would choose.
It really is abnormal. Not that your bench press
is weak,
it's
really strange. And
you out strict press me by like 35 pounds, but we have the same bench press.
I know.
It's the weirdest thing.
I think you bench more than me. I can barely bench 300 pounds.
You almost strict press 300 pounds.
I know. It's crazy. It's weird. I don't know what it is. So obviously, if you're someone like that, you're going to have options in there so that you can pick the correct lift that's good for you.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah. So that's the strength overview.
Yeah. So as we kind of turn the corner into CrossFit, the elite path, the RX path, and the master path will all follow a very similar template. And in fact, intermediate is pretty much the same, but Mia will talk about this. There are some got none and got some progressions. And if you don't know what those are, stay tuned so that Mia can explain that to you. So let's just do a quick overview, kind of to Mike's point. As we turn the corner into the CrossFit season, we have to move away a little bit, at least, from some of the linear progressions that we were doing. If you've been in our program, you see that 3 of the 5 training days in CrossFit were very linear over the last 2 cycles. We kind of stayed focused on, hey, we're trying to improve your squat endurance, or we're trying to, get better at a certain test. Now we need a little bit more variance, a little bit more chaos. The reality of the sport, as much as sometimes I hate it, is it's the unknown and unknowable. And because of that, we need to have kind of those hopper style days. In other words, just throwing some things in, spinning it around, and then picking out some movements, because that's what's testing the sport. Yeah. So we can look at the data, we run the analytics, and we get a feel for what combos are tested most often and what people need to work on, but there still needs to be some variance. So this cycle, we kind of turn the corner into a little less linear progressions and a little bit more variance in our CrossFit training, which I think most of you like, because most people are crazy meatheads when it comes to CrossFit anyhow. So there is still some structure, but you'll notice from week to week, there is some change as far as what will be tested. On Mondays, it'll be focused on hinge endurance mixed with gymnastics. When I say hinge endurance, it's really pulling from the ground, but the variance there is going to be much more intense than what you've seen over the last cycle. So instead of it just being deadlifts every single week, you'll have deadlifts and then kettlebell snatches the next week, and then power cleans, then power snatches, all kinds of different variations that may be tested in an open, a quarterfinal, or a semifinal style workout.
I feel like one of the biggest limiters for majority of people trying to get better in the sport is like that hinge, like burpee combo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Being able to breathe through those. Yeah. So we'll have, that actually is one of the combos that's tested in the first couple weeks. And then the way that we're going to do this is Monday and Wednesdays, you'll see that there's a certain focus on both of those, but they'll alternate weeks. We still have an A week and a B week. And what we mean by that is on the A weeks on Monday, so that first week, we'll just call them the odds, the first, third, fifth, seventh week of this cycle, it'll be all EMOMs or intervals. We're trying to prep you for the next week, which will be all our Metcons, which will be called our even weeks, right? So 2, 4, 6, and 8 will all have actual Metcons, real tests on Monday. And then on Wednesdays, it'll be the alternate, right? Or the
alpha week, beta week.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Tuesdays will be a various erg development day combined with body weight style movements. You can think of it as simple as this: 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, row cows, 15 burpee box jump overs every single round.
Ew.
Like those kind of things. And instead of it being on Tuesdays, for those that have been in the program, they've been very linear. We did a 2K sustainability test. Before that, it was a 20-minute C2 bike erg test. Now we're going to get to some chaos on Tuesdays. It's still very much cyclical based. We're going to have all kinds of mixed ergs, echo bikes, running. Everything that's tested in the sport will be in there on Tuesdays, but it won't make there won't be necessarily a linear progression from week to week on those days, but the body weight stuff is going to be very important. It's going to help you for the open when there are things like box jumps, burpees, double unders, handstand walking, all of those things, but not a lot of external load on Tuesdays. Wednesdays will be squat endurance with a speed focus. A lot of people love that on Fridays this past cycle where we did kind of
hit.
Yeah. Hey, look, it's 20-second AMRAP.
Yep.
Right. 20-second AMRAP of as many thrusters as you can. Similar to that, except now we're going to build into intervals and EMOMs like we talked about for Mondays, and then there'll be Metcons on those odd weeks. Then on Friday, we're going to also rest on Thursdays in the CrossFit. This is what I call my hopper or checklist day. Essentially, this is where we are looking at the analytics to start. What are the things that have been tested in the sport? What are the most common combos? Where are the biggest separators for these movements? And then from there, we throw them all into a hopper, and each week it's just going to be completely random. So on Fridays, some Fridays are going to be super hard Metcons, some Fridays are going to be EMOMs, some Fridays will be intervals, some Fridays will just be skill-based work, but it's completely random to make sure that you're touching every single thing in the sport. And when we look at that checklist, we're making sure that every pattern is touched every single week or every other week that may come out in the open or quarterfinals. And then Saturdays will be our TTT throwdowns, which we're going to continue on. People have loved the throwdowns. They've been fun but pretty nasty.
They've been really fun lately. The wall ball power snatch one and the chipper a week before, but those 2 in a row I thought were awesome.
Yeah, a lot of people have liked those, and we'll have more of that style where it's just like all kinds of things that would normally come out in the open or, again, quarterfinals, because that's what we're training for at this time of year.
The 5 rounds for time of 20 power snatches, 20 dumbbell power snatches, and 20 burpees was just so gross and so simple, but it was so necessary. Yeah. Like I'm doing it and it hurt so bad. Everything caught on fire.
But you think about like what are the tests
needed
of the open?
Though. Yeah, like this is absolutely something I could see coming out as 23.1.
Yeah. And the other thing too is if you're good at that, you're usually pretty good at everything up until like the high skill stuff that comes out in semifinals. So
I mean, that's the stuff you need to start preparing for now if you're someone, especially like intermediate, that's wanting to crack into the quarterfinal division, because that's the simple stuff that anyone in the world can do, and for the most part, or not in the world, anyone in the large majority of the field can do with very simple movement patterns.
Yeah.
And I think every year we get to the open and everyone forgets how fast people move with simple stuff.
It is insane.
So
it's just a different level for some of the high-level games athletes, both males and females. So that's kind of the big overview of CrossFit. Keep in mind we have extra credit progressions that we will talk about after Mia touches on the intermediate path. So stay tuned for that. Mia, crush it.
All right, intermediate path. So for those of you who are new, the intermediate path is a developmental path. Our goal is to get you out of the intermediate path and into the RX path. We do that by developing your skills in the sport, because that's usually what will limit someone from being an RX athlete. Strength as well, but we follow the same strength progressions as the RX path. So we always have 2 options in intermediate: got none and got some. Got none means you do not have the skill at all. So these are pure skill progressions. Learn how to do your first ring muscle up, learn how to handstand walk, learn how to do a wall walk. No fatigue, just purely working on the skill. The difference between how we do it in intermediate versus other skill programs is it's integrated into your program. So it already fits in with your training day. You don't have to worry about, oh, do I tack this on top of everything and now I'm training for 3 hours, or I have handstand push-ups in my workout, but I need to do my strict handstand push-ups work. Now I'm doing extra handstand push-ups and not getting better at anything. So it's fit into your programming to prioritize that skill development while still getting a really good training day in and hitting strength progressions and CrossFit progressions that don't clash with the skill work.
Yeah, that's a big thing, is that you've gone in and like we have our CrossFit progressions that Brandon touched on with what the splits are through the week, but you go in and adjust those to make them flow very well with the skill progressions that they're doing that day, so that you're not overloading movement patterns and actually hindering progress.
Yeah, the typical program that I've seen people follow is they're trying to do everything that the RX or elite athlete's doing, and then they just kind of end up getting bottlenecked. They're staring at the rings, or they modify it themselves and then get beat up, and they're still trying to do the skill progressions after. Whereas Mia is designing this in a way that everything flows together for the day.
Yep.
Yes. So that's got none. Got some progressions. These have been progressing throughout the year, and what we're doing is, it's basically what it is. You have some of the skill, but you're not quite ready to just do them in Metcons, or if you do them, if you do them in Metcons, you're just staring at the rings or failing handstand walks. You're not quite ready to put that skill under fatigue and actually get good training out of it. So we've been progressing it throughout the year. We worked on volume tolerance. We worked on the skill under simpler levels of fatigue, and we've been building into more complex levels of fatigue. And this cycle is going to be the first time that we are testing your skills with, quote, CrossFit movements.
All right.
Woohoo! We made it. It's not quite Metcon, so you're not doing Metcons with the skills, but we're doing intervals. So for instance, Monday, say you're doing your bar muscle up, got some progressions. We're testing thrusters and bar muscle ups and doing intervals of that. It's still designed in a way for you to be able to get good bar muscle up training in, but we're adding more complex levels of fatigue to get you to feel what it will be like in the open when you have to do thrusters and bar muscle ups. But again, still setting you up in a way that it's good training and you're not just standing there staring at the bar and getting bottlenecked in a workout and not getting good conditioning in because you have your conditioning after that.
Yep.
So the structure for that is an A week, B week, like Brannen said before. What do we land on? Alpha week, beta week?
Yeah.
Odd, even. Basically, we have the 8.
Those don't mean anything. I just said
the 8 skills that we work on: bar, muscle up, ring muscle up, handstand walk, wall walk, strict and kipping handstand push-ups. What did I forget? 1, 2, 3. Toes bar and chest bar.
Ah, there we go.
Yep. So we alternate between the weeks, so you're hitting all of those skills once every 2 weeks in those progressions. And again, they are pulled out of the conditioning, so your conditioning is going to look a little bit different than Elite and RX, but it's still super, super hard. We're still training CrossFit. You're just not doing your gymnastics training in those conditioning sessions just
you're
yet.
killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Exactly, so we'll run through those progressions, intervals of that, of those pairings. The intervals will get harder as the cycle progresses, and then once we get towards the end of the cycle, we're actually going to start doing intervals of some old open workouts where you're seeing these pairings that normally come out.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome.
Thank you.
There are 2 other things that I think are important because we get these questions all the time. For some people, they're already very, very strong. They don't want to be in the elite path. They want to do RX, or maybe they're a master's athlete, but they say, hey, I still want some like basic endurance work. Mm-hmm. You have that option. We just put it into the elite path. So for those that are in the program or those that maybe are new about to sign up, just know that when you sign up, you'll see that, okay, I want to be RX, and RX has its normal strength and let's say a Metcon or CrossFit portion for the day, but you want some extra endurance work. You want to do some running work or some mixed erg development, whatever it may be. You can simply go to the elite path because you have access all for the same price, and you can actually take those endurance days and pull them into your training. The app is very intuitive that way, so we if you have any questions, I can show you on that, but you can simply say, every Monday I want to do the running progressions, and just move it over to Mondays for you. I think that's a really cool thing, and I actually kind of do a little bit of that. Sometimes I'll do option 2 of RX, but instead of the Metcon, I'll do some of the endurance work because I'm just trying to do a little bit more erg stuff now.
There's a lot of people that I've actually consulted with in the program that are very strong and need more of the conditioning work and don't need to hit the strength volume that's listed like in the RX. That takes up a large majority of the training day, because a large majority of the field does need to get stronger, but there are the select few that are very strong that don't need it, and we push them to the endurance path pretty often.
Yeah. So all of those that are in the Compete training program, you have access to those endurance days. So go and look at that. It's really simple. You can just toggle that on and off in your program, and they'll populate for you.
Do you want to talk about them? Days of the week?
Yeah, okay. We can touch on those real quick. So on Mondays, we're going to do a 1 mile repeatability test. This actually would be very similar to those that are in the RX program that just did the 2K row repeatability test. Yeah. Except now, especially for our elite athletes that that how important running is, either at an in-person competition. So let's say that maybe you are going to Wadapalooza and there's going to be running. This would be a good option for you. Or for those that are going to make a semifinal or do an in-person competition, maybe in the spring or summer, start running now so that you're ready for that. On Tuesdays, it'll be very similar to what we talked about for the normal CrossFit sessions. Will be mixed erg development. I put in a sample program in. If you're following along with us, it's 50, 40, 30, 20, 10 row cows and burpee box jump overs, which I already mentioned.
Yeah, that was like winter's coming workout last year.
Right, yeah, that was a nasty one too. Wednesdays will be swim progressions, and we actually built them out this cycle for those that are going to Wadapalooza. So if you are going to Wadapalooza, even if you're in the RX or intermediate or whatever, and you know you need to practice swimming, then at least pull out the Wednesday endurance progressions and start doing those. And these, instead of it being all skill-based like it was last cycle for those that followed our swim progressions, there'll be some skill touches at the beginning or technique touches. And then after that, it's going to be all mixed work. So you'll see swimming in burpees, swimming in handstand push-ups, swimming in kettlebell snatches, all the things that have been tested at Wadapalooza or Dubai or any of these other in-person competitions. We basically took some formats of that, changed it to things that make sense for our athletes, and we delivered that to all of you.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And even if you're not going to the in-person competition, I think it's good to mix this style of swim split into your training at least once a year, just to make sure that you are getting some mixed work in. One, it's just fun, but two, we are still doing the technical work, but I think it's important to just know the difference in like swim workouts versus swim mixed workouts.
Yeah.
Like, that's
big
like,
difference.
That was like when we started prepping for the games this summer, that was like a huge slap in the face. Like I've been swimming all year long. I hadn't done any mixed workouts. And the first one we did, it was awful. Like it was really hard to adapt to, but start doing more of them. And it actually, like, if you're technical enough in the swimming, it actually, to me, makes swimming feel a lot better.
Yeah, I agree. And then Fridays will be our what I'll just call power progressions or even absolute speed work. For those that maybe are super enduring but not very powerful on the ergs, let's say, can you sprint really aggressively on the row erg or on an echo bike? You need to make sure that you're touching that throughout the year. Like I think this is something that just needs to be almost like the strength work. You need to be doing it all the time. So we've separated a day or focus on one day where it's all power-based progressions, really short 12-second sprints, 15-second sprints. And then towards the end of that, it'll be more power endurance work so that you're prepping kind of what you'll feel like in an open workout.
Yeah, I think it's the same reason that we add in speed work with Metcon movements on a daily basis, because you're just, as a CrossFitter, you're trying to get really good at that like middle time domain, and you get so stuck in only working at like sustainable paces all the time that you rarely go max effort to really kind of like push your ceiling and increase your ceiling of potential and how fast you can actually move. I think that's very important on machines as well. So like a lot of people are just limited by top end power output, especially those that are going to go compete in competitions or do team stuff where power repeat is so important. In the ability to like really create top end speed on machines.
For sure. And then the last day, Saturdays, will be a 60-minute C2 bike progression. I know that most people probably don't want to do that, but if you are somebody, and Mike alluded to this, those that he's consulted with that maybe are super, super strong, but just not very enduring, that's a great option for you, and it won't beat you up. Those progressions are a little bit lower effort, but still long.
Say like sub 85% max heart rate for majority of it. So you should walk away from these feeling really good, actually.
Yeah. So that's a great option, especially for those that are prepping for or need longer endurance work. Now, the extra credit work. This is an option that we started putting in over the last couple of cycles. And essentially, this is for anybody in any of the paths that maybe just wants to pick or choose a couple things that they're not great at. So this last cycle, for example, we had strict handstand pushups in there. Now, if you're an intermediate path, you need to follow the GOTNA and strict handstand pushup progressions in there. But let's just say that you're somebody that has graduated from intermediate into RX and you still need some work. Those extra credit progressions that are in RX or in Masters, in Elite, are a great option for you to continue to build that skill. And we've picked movements that are commonly tested in the sport, but also the ones that are the biggest separators. And to go back to strict handstand push-up, that's an obvious one, because once those go, as all of us know, you just stare at the wall. You lose so much time, as opposed to, at least you can go slower on a row erg, or you can pick up the bar and do another power clean.
Yeah, that just goes with any like endurance or capacity limiter with certain movements, is sometimes hitting it in a Metcon once a week just isn't enough to really help show progress or help you improve in that movement. And I think moving beyond like what we do in the intermediate division or intermediate path, like people still have limiters in the RX that need to be trained. And I think these extra credit progressions are fantastic for that. Do they necessarily need to skip the entire Metcon for the day and do them? No, but I think it's enough that for those that want to add on and make sure that, all right, like I know once a week we're hitting handstand push-ups in a Metcon, plus I do the extra credit handstand push-up work, then that's going to be plenty for the week for me to improve and see progress and kind of shore up that limiter.
For sure. The one thing I'll say before I go over these days, you can also pull these out of that training day if you don't have time and move them to another training day. The one thing I would say is reach out to us and ask which day makes the most sense for you. I pride myself, I know that Mia and Mike pride themselves on being in the program, reading the results. We change the programming on a regular basis based on the feedback that we get. So reach out to us if you need help with where to put these extra credit days. Now, there are two. Do you have something?
Yeah, I was going to talk about option 2 that we never really touched in RX. So we talked about in intermediate, we talked about elite, we talked about our masters and what the option 2 is there. But one thing we forgot to kind of cover was the RX option 2 and its purpose. So it is no, we did talk about it, didn't we? Okay, never mind. I'm an idiot.
Okay.
Run it back.
We crushed it.
I think I had a different train of thought on what I wanted to talk about, the purpose of it, but we already did. So, yeah.
You can crush that again if you
F
want.
me.
You want to remind everybody?
It's amazing. It's the greatest piece of the program.
I mean, again, Mike and I both have used that quite a bit.
If you have a brain like I have right now,
you need option 2.
You need the option 2 program for the day.
So for the extra credit work, we basically have put 2 days of movement and mobility work in, and that will be very similar. Basically the same thing as our movement mobility path. Essentially, it's me saying, hey, you need to move better if you want to be good at the sport, so you have to do some of the movement mobility. So on Mondays and Tuesdays, that's what it will be all about. Mondays will be hip and ankle mobility. I think that's extremely important if you want to be able to squat well. For me, my ankles always need work. So I'm doing that every single week to make sure that I can squat and I can stay healthy. Tuesdays will be overhead mobility. I personally think that the overhead position is actually more important than the squat position because there's just no way to get around a bad overhead position. If you have a bad squat position, you can open up your hips a little bit more, shove your butt back, spread your feet out, kind of duck your feet out, whatever. But with overhead, you have to be in a good position to be good at all of those things. Gymnastics work, all the squat snatches, overhead squats, wall walks, handstand push-ups, so on and so forth.
Double dumbbell overhead lunges.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's all you would need to say, right? And then we have 3 days of actual movements. And you'll notice that some of these are things that have been tested over the last couple of years that most of us were not great at when they came out. So Wednesdays will be GHDs and rope climbs. We'll combo those. We'll have all kinds of different variations. It's been super common over the last couple of years. And even if they don't come out together, it's good to train those together so that you're getting good at both of those. Then Friday will be all about pistols. 1, this improves your squat positions, which I think, again, is extremely important. But 2, it's come out over the last couple of years and in high volume. So we want in this cycle to prep you for the volume that we're going to do in the open cycle. And then Saturdays, kind of geared more towards the elite athletes with pegboards and more strongman work. But I would encourage those that are in RX to do at least a little bit of that. We'll give you variation. So it's like 1 to 3 sets. Maybe you only do 1 set, but get a touch on the strongman work so that you're prepping your body for those positions.
I think, too, it just helps avoid burnout. And what I mean by that is oftentimes we look at the data and we want to create a program that only trains you at the things you're going to be doing all the time. And that makes perfect sense, but we're human beings and we want changes and structure and we want variation. So I think it's really important to make sure that even though maybe you're an RX or intermediate athlete that's probably not going to do a lot of the movements that would ever be seen at the games, it's just good for rounded fitness to still make sure you're hitting touches on that stuff from time to time, and it's just fun. And I think that putting it on Saturday after the throwdown is just like a good opportunity. You've got more space in the gym typically, you've got more time to get stuff set up. So it's just a good opportunity to kind of make sure that we are hitting these things that, are kind of like I'll use the reference like outside of the phone booth a little bit.
For sure. So that is all the extra credit, endurance, and CrossFit work. We talked about the strength work. A couple other options that we have, and we already mentioned this, is the movement mobility path. So that is, it's been such a hit. I think everyone is using it now. I use it all the time. I know people on site are using it. I would highly encourage everyone to at least do a few days. I tell all of the masters athletes to go in there on Thursdays and Sundays and use it as a recovery piece.
Yeah. I mean, it's very helpful. It's easy to follow. And Kyle Habdo, he's one of our coaches, but he's also a physical therapist. He's gone through and built this so that it is doable in a time frame that's pretty short, like roughly 30 minutes or so, and it's effective. So I'm a big fan of it because it does go in line with the training and it's easy to follow. And I just think it's one of those things that if it's on the daily path that you're following, you're more likely to do it versus you having to go to some external app or use something else where you have to kind of go out of your way to do it. It's in there and it's in line with what you're already doing for the day. So it's perfect.
And then we also have our fitness pass, which we didn't touch on here. We're going to make another whiteboard video for that, and I'll make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to see what the fitness programs are doing. But just keep in mind, for those that don't want to be competitive in the sport but still want to stay fit, I bounce back and forth between RX Option 2 and all the endurance, all the fitness pass, mostly the endurance and bodybuilding. But it's a lot of fun. We have a bodybuilding path, an endurance path, and then a 60 path, which is essentially a condensed down version of our RX path in Compete.
Yeah. So a session you want to get in within an hour, it's a good program. I think the big thing too is knowing that a lot of people, they do the Complete product, which is where they basically get access to both of them. They get all the Compete products and the fitness products, but using them so they can switch back and forth. Maybe they go through a transition in training or they just finished a competition and they don't necessarily want to jump right back into doing a lot of CrossFit. They can follow some bodybuilding for a little bit and you've got options there. So it's really nice having the ability to go back and forth between the two or pick what you need and having those options.
I mean, you're getting 10 programs for one low price. I think it's a really good deal. And again, having those options, I think, is very valuable.
Yep. Yeah. So, like Brandon said, we'll have a video that kind of talks about each one of those in more detail. But anything else you guys want to add? I think, again, just mentioning, like, we're sending out a document that's going to have basically everything we covered, so that you can go through and look at the daily program splits and just follow along and make sure you understand exactly where you're heading for this cycle. But I think big picture, I'm fired up for Winners Coming Classic.
Tell us the workout.
No, absolutely not.
0% chance.
All right. You want to give like a teaser or a hint about it?
Yeah, little hint.
Let's
I'll
just
let
say,
you. I don't know.
Let's say there's going to be a
Mike's
repeat from last
give
year.
it away.
There is a repeat.
Yep.
There's
There's a repeat. Is that enticing?
For all those that didn't do it, are like, oh,
Is that
well,
enough?
doesn't
Is
matter.
that enough side boob?
Yes,
More
so.
side.
I'll have to do.
Cool. Anything else you guys want to
On
add?
that note, let's leave.
Yeah, we're pumped up for it. I think this is actually going through our review process. This is probably my most favorite cycle we've ever written.
That fires me
Wow.
up. Let's go.
I like it.
Yep. All right. Thanks, guys.